Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. I've never understood the attitude some guys have about the tool truck brands. Tool reps are way too valuable to treat like that. The fact that you cited the freaking part number for the ratchet did me in. I bow to you, OP. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Get the F off your property? That's a splendid idea. Several years ago, I worked as a tool guy. For those who don't know, mechanics buy all their own tools. Shops provide very little. They're also incredibly busy people, so I drive shop to shop with a big truck full of tools to sell, fix, and order, and help find solutions to things they were coming across. Plenty of mechanics spend as much on tools as students spend on college. This was a difficult job as my customers were a very rough bunch. You had to have thick skin to do this job, and those that didn't wouldn't last long at all. I was running one of the most established routes in the area to the point where mechanics from other territories would travel to me due to my knowledge, reliability, and inventory. I was well known in the local automotive community, and I pampered my customers. The issue with pampering your customers is that some of them grow used to it and don't realize how good they have it. Most everyone was a delinquent at some point in their life, but they would often mature enough to be tolerable as they get older. Not all of them, though. One guy I saw had an unbelievable temper. He'd regularly talk down to me, demand everything from me, zero tolerance, and would even complain about the free candy I'd have on the truck for everyone. One day I showed up and he asked, "Hey, do you remember that time I told you my jump pack was acting up?" "I don't, sorry, what's wrong with it?" Well, F me sideways. He did not like the fact I didn't remember a conversation from 4 months ago. He flipped. He started complaining and going on a tirade. I don't remember what he said, but only half was in English, so you know he was PO'd. He ended up throwing a ratchet, part number SHLF80A, at me and yelled, "Just effing fix my crap, then get the F off my property." Finally, an out. I picked up his ratchet and rebuilt it, made a repair order for his jump pack, left everything nice and neat on his unbelievably messy toolbox, and never stepped foot on his property again. My boss asked me why, and I told him. He never argued with me about it. I worked 12 to 14-hour days. I wasn't going to put up with that crap, and he agreed with me. From then on, he had to go way out of his way to get everything he needed, and it was likely a lot. He even moved his shop to a different area where a less reliable tool guy was. I heard a rumor that he wanted to apologize to me so I'd come back, but he never had the stones to do it. And our second story, the unicorn. I met my buddy Pat in the early 90s when I was a sophomore in high school. He was a non-vet living in a dilapidated old apartment in a crummy small town on Florida's west coast. The units were pretty run down with cars, young barefooted ill-watched children running about, and the various kind of yard detritus one might expect. I guess he'd taken a shine to me because I was intrigued by him working on various cars, boats, and the fact that he'd sneak my 16-year-old self beers just to have someone to chat with. Also, Pat was in the midst of a nasty divorce. Sometimes these things happen when you decide to cohabitate with a cocktail waitress 20 years you're younger, but such is life. She'd taken him for nearly everything, which wasn't much to begin with, leaving Pat almost completely broken-hearted. Almost. Because she left him Moose, a white poodleish dog of questionable lineage. Moose was great. Pat would take him to bars, dye him green for St. Patrick's Day, and they were always inseparable. If Pat was working on a derelict boat while sucking down a parliament and mainlining Busch Light in the 90-degree heat, Moose was right there with him all day long. About 3 months after the divorce, Pat's ex called demanding the return of a beloved childhood stuffed animal, a small unicorn. Evidently, her father had given it to her. He'd recently passed, and she realized it was the only remaining item she'd forgotten to abscond with. I'm sitting there witnessing the phone conversation, wondering what the hell she's complaining about, when Pat closes the call with, "Fine, you worthless W. I'm going out of town, but I'll be back in a month. You can collect your effing unicorn then." Slam. Pat looked at me, and a devilish smile crossed his crocked teeth. After explaining the call, he leaves the kitchen to fish through some dusty closet boxes and retrieves the plushy unicorn. Moose, he calls. And Moose comes running, per command, eyes wide and tail wagging. Moose sits and awaits Master's command. Moose, here's your unicorn. And Pat tosses it down to the runt dog, who eyes it for a moment. It may be fair to mention at this point that Moose is not neutered. He then proceeds to doggy F the ever-loving hell out of that unicorn like the antidote was lodged somewhere in its fluffy soul. Word travels fast in crappy communities, and soon, Moose, go get your unicorn, was the favored saying. Damn near everyone would pass by and mutter those words, only to have the poodle run inside, get the stuffed love toy, and proceed to befoul that thing like nobody's business. A month passes, and poor unicorn was looking haggard, missing an eye and all dignity. B cocktail waitress finally pulls up one muggy Florida day in her Chevrolet Celebrity to collect her prized possession. After some unpleasant words exchanged, she demands her unicorn. A small crowd had gathered, and Pat's moment had arrived. Finally, after losing everything, it was time to mutter the sweetest words of redemption I'd ever previously or ever will hear again. Moose, go get your unicorn. And our next story. I take privacy seriously. I process home loans that come to our company via a mortgage broker. Customer comes to mortgage broker for a loan. Mortgage broker searches for the right home loan and comes to us, the lender. Mortgage broker is our client. We recently had a client that decided to withdraw the loan application as the valuation on the property was not as high as the broker/client wanted it to be, meaning that the customer had to pay more out of their pocket for their new property. As part of this loan application, the customer also submitted a form for a subsidy called First Homeowners Grant, FHOG. This is a government grant that helps people buy their first home and has strict guidelines to who can apply. While not particular to the lender, it's a document that's full of personal information that we're legally obliged to protect under the Privacy Act. When this loan did not proceed, we were sent an email by the customer's new financier, Competitor Bank, requesting we send the FHOG document over to them so they can lodge for the customer. Our answer was no, we'll send to the broker who supplied it to us or the client only as per our Privacy Act. Will not supply documents to a third party that's not related to our dealings with the customer. Competitor banks should know this. It's the law. And the banks, as well as individuals, can face hefty fines. Now, I was the lucky one to get the call from the broker who supplied the document to us initially. She's accusing us of deliberately not sending the document because we were not awarded the loan in the first place. I tell her, as above, RE Privacy Act, we can mail to client or her. She screams that the other bank need it today. Mailing will take too long and said, you'll have someone walk this document over to Competitor Bank today. Me, no, I can't have that happen. Rinse and repeat. Privacy. I offer that document can be collected from our head office by client or broker. Her, client is in another state. Not possible. I'll send a person from Competitor Bank to collect. Me, rinse and repeat. RE Privacy. Her, after more accusations, you know what I think? I will collect it myself. I hear a real sarcastic tone in her voice. I know she planned on sending someone from Competitor Bank to come to us and just say they were her. Me, oh, excellent. I'll tell reception that you'll collect it. Please ensure you have your ID on you as we'll not hand it over unless we know it's you. Her, stunned silence. Me, what time do you anticipate arriving so I can let reception know? Her, I'm driving from the Gold Coast, so, about 1.5 hours, I guess, because traffic and... Me, excellent, we'll see you then. Okay, thanks, goodbye. And our last story. HOA Next Door tries to enforce their rules on me. Try again, fool. I purchased my house in 2015, not even a thought of an HOA in the village. At the time, my neighbors were the cemetery to the west, 5 acres of woodland to the north, neighbor's house 200 feet away to the east, and south frontage onto a secondary highway with land dropping off on the far side. Ideal location for compromising Hub's mentality of middle of nowhere, antisocial stance, and my wanting at least neighbors within screaming distance. Fast forward to 2021. Land parcel to the north sold to some numbered company. Then the one neighbor we had listed his house for sale. As discovered after the fact, Mark sincerely apologized when he realized what happened. The same company bought his house and land in early 2022. They raised his house and outbuildings and applied for rezoning. So far, nothing concerns me. Well, they start subdividing the land for lots, applied to have road allowances and water services. No wastewater service available because, rural village. This means to those not familiar that they have to allow square footage on the lots for a septic system, which for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house is minimum 750 square feet with a specific setback from the adjacent property lines. Also, the township I live has no requirements for fence permits, just height rules for front line of house, 4 feet, versus backyard, 6 feet. And you may not install the fence over the property line, and unless agreed upon in writing prior to fence installation, it may not be installed on the property line with the adjoining neighbor being responsible for cost and/or maintenance. Well, so far I've been given notice of 1. Variance application to have the 2 houses planned next to me have their septic beds closer to my property line than township bylaws allow. 2. Legal notice to allow fencing to be built on the property line with half the linear cost to be assigned to 123 ABC Drive, my address. 3. Notice from the developer's lawyers that I, as an adjacent property, will be required to abide by their neighborhood aesthetic requirements, which comes down to rules on house, garage, outbuilding, colors, vehicles allowed on property, and color of flowers allowed in publicly visible flower beds, red, white, and blue only. Excuse me? I live in Canada. Red and white maybe, but blue? Yeah, right, try again. I bought this house without deed restrictions. My name's Karen. I am the original 1967 version. My mother had a premonition about the witch I would grow up to be. Bring it on. Update. Township council meetings are on the 15th of each month. Last night I attended, as this was when the variance application for the development next door was to be discussed and decided on. Sat through 2 very boring hours of other business. When it came to the developer's turn to explain why they needed the variance, it came down to because the septic beds would need to be raised due to water table heights. Moving the septics further back on the lots would allow additional flat area between the houses and the septic beds so that future homeowners would have more room to install things like an above-ground swimming pool. For those not familiar, putting a swimming pool on a septic bed is a bad thing. First question council asked after the developer went through their arguments, any objections to this variance request? I stood, voiced my objections. These are quarter-acre lots. It's not a space issue, and wanting more room for toys is not a valid reason for a variance for an item that could have environmental impact on my property. Variance denied. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.